It's always so official when it says it's being recorded. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to this session. Today, we will be talking about searching, applying, and going to graduate school. If you are thinking about your next steps after graduating from an undergraduate program, this session could be beneficial for you. Today, we have panelists who have worked with students from across many majors over many years. They have helped students pursue graduate degrees. They've helped students look into what school works best for them. And I'm pretty sure they've all attended grad school too. So they have that spin on things too. They've been through it. So first, I will ask our panelists to introduce themselves and maybe the types of programs that they have some focus on or expertise in that they could speak to, and then we will get started. I forgot to introduce myself. My name is Holly Ashton. I am an advisor for the 3+1 program at Rowan. I advise our have experience advising for psychology seniors as well. Dennis, do you mind introducing yourself first?
Yep. Hi, everyone. My name is Dennis Barrera. I'm the advisor for our Computer Science and Technology program, formerly for construction management. And before I came to Rowan, I worked in the graduate business offices for Temple University in Villanova.
Thanks, Dennis. Christina? Oh, Christina, you're on mute.
I needed to practice. Hi, I'm Christina Pellegrino. I primarily assist the School of Earth and Environmental Science and College of Engineering graduate students, but that's not my focus, my personal focus. I have a PhD in higher education management and policy. So for anyone out there that's interested pursuing the PhD or anything education, you can also reach out to me. I'd love to help.
Thank you. Okay, Jason.
Hi, everybody. My name is Jason Salvatore. I am the program coordinator for our graduate level business programs at Rowan University. I have a Master of Arts in Higher Education Administration myself from Rowan University, so I have experience in the education space and now for the last 6+ years in the business space. And my goal is just to help students through anything in graduate school with School of Business. But over my time, I've learned a lot about just graduate school in general and I'm here to provide any assistance and things that I can.
Great. Last but not least, Mike.
Hello, my name is Mike Schillo. I am I've been at Rowan for quite some time doing all things in the world of computer science, originally undergrad, but right now I am the graduate program advisor for the programs that are within the computer science department, which consist of the Master of Science in Computer Science, Master of Science in Data Science, and the Master of Science in Cybersecurity. And I also have a higher education administration background, and I am looking forward to answering any and all questions that anyone might have. Thank you.
Great, thank you so much. We do have a couple of our colleagues also on the call as well. And so if you do have questions specific to different programs, but you didn't hear us talk about them, of course, put them in the chat, and I'm sure some of our colleagues would be happy to connect with you separately or through the chat. So thank you to those who have sent in questions. We had a lot of questions submitted, some great ones, primarily in these 3 different categories that are listed here: figuring out the best fit for you, the application process, and then starting off strong as a graduate student. So we will answer some questions for each category, and as we do, feel free to add other questions you might have related to that category in the chat. If you are watching this after the fact via YouTube and have further questions, I will include some helpful links in the description of this video, including emails that you could reach out to if you are a Rowan student or looking to go to grad school at Rowan. There are also information sessions about Rowan's graduate programs that I will post the link to that information as well. Although we do work at Rowan, our answers aren't only applicable to Rowan programs. Although we might give some examples or, have some specific answers that are a little bit skewed that way, it's just because that's where a lot of our expertise and knowledge base comes from. So some of the questions that were submitted are specific to particular areas of interest, so we will do our best to answer those. And also the answer to your question might be, well, it depends. It depends on what you're thinking of doing, but we can give some advice from students we have worked with, even if that is the case. Okay, let's get started. We will kind of have this open, so any panelists that would like to answer questions, feel free to pop in with your advice, but I will ask Jason to get us started with this first question because he hosts information sessions for students specifically. So what types of questions should I ask during an open house or information session? Oh, and you are muted.
Thank you, Holly. I appreciate it. So been going in and out of mute sometimes gets in the way. So first thing I want to say is obviously the sessions I host are for the College of Business and Graduate Program. So I'm going to answer this question based on what any sort of individual interested in grad school should be considering. And the first thing is just clarifying questions are for the program that you're applying to is extremely important. And that means specifics about the admissions process. That could be a GMAT or GRE or some other standardized test that requires. Are there waiver options, right? A lot of programs might say there's a standardized test requirement. You want to make sure you ask if there's waiver options, if it's actually required, or if you truly need to do it. They will be able to clarify that very easily. Letters of recommendation, if there are any letters of recommendation or references, what types of individuals should those letters of rec or references come from? Who should that be? And even something like tuition, clarifying what the tuition cost would be. The time to degree completion. Is this a 1-year program? Is it a 3-year program? Can I rotate between online and on-campus classes? Is it all on campus? Is it somewhat online, all online? Clarify those details because they may not always come up in an info session. The info sessions that I host are very packed. There's a lot of information, but even we still miss the detail when people ask clarifying questions that are important for them. So anything you think you might know, just ask if you just want to confirm, get 100% clarification on that point. And one big thing that I think, I don't even think our office does the best job explaining, accreditation. Accreditation of any program, whether that's with Rowan University, whether that's with another university, it's going to be a key indicator of the quality of the program that you are applying to. So, for example, Rowan's College of Business is AACSB accredited. You don't necessarily know what AACSB means, but in the world of business, that's the top accreditation you can have. Other schools have other lower accreditations, similar program names, lower accreditations, not going to get the best bang for your buck, the best amount investment for what you're putting in financially to what you're getting out of it. Asking that question, doing some research into the industry is very important. So accreditation, absolutely ask about it. Any program should be able to clarify what accreditation they have, and it should knowledge of your research. And the last part I'll say, Holly, I know it's a long answer, I apologize, is who you'll actually be working with in the program. Who are the individuals you'll be working with? Admissions and actual advisors and program management are typically separate. And you might work with an advisor through the admission process, then you're admitted, completely different people during the actual time in the program. Get some clarity on who that actually is, makes your life a lot easier, and there's no confusion on the transition from admission to actually being in the program. There's a lot more, but I wanted to at least start there. Those are some of the key points I think to share.
Thank you. And I think some of the questions that you'll see in this presentation might also be a good fit as well. So I will also have information about information sessions that we offer at Rowan, but you could always look up a lot of schools in the area have virtual information sessions, and I think they're a great place to start when you are looking for your best fit. So the next question is, does Rowan offer a reading specialist graduate program? I looked it up and yes, but would anyone like to speak to how to look up the types of programs that a school might offer? And yes, you can post questions in the chat for sure. Would anyone like to speak about how to look up what programs a school might offer?
So best thing to do, and this is, I think, Rowan's guilty of this too, as other institutions are, and I'll say it, and I actually have no problem with our website, but college websites in general are not the best. They're just all very different. They can be all over the place, and they're very customized to that particular institution. So it can be very difficult to navigate. What I would say is you always want to go about it multiple ways. First thing is whichever program that you're interested in, I would say just start. I always say you got to start somewhere. So just I always say you throw the blanket, Google or whatever system you use, throw that out first there. Now, if you're on a real specific series of institutions, then do the same thing within their search criteria. But then you might want to do, let's say, for example, reading specialist. That's a good one. Okay, if you're looking, that's probably in the College of Education. So actually look up that college from the college, from the departments, and navigate that way and explore it in there. And what you'll realize is, I mean, Rowan does, but it also has things called certificates of advanced graduate study, which are, and I know business has some of them, which are kind of designed for, okay, a little bit more after the fact, after the graduate side of the wagon. And what you're really looking for is just, you're looking for general information, but the most important thing that you want to try to find are contacts. Multiple contacts, who do I ask? And it's always better now. I used to say, it's always better to get a human being on the phone. In the modern day, unfortunately, email is the reality. So I always say, don't be shy. Email everyone you can under sunset. Just be honest. Hey, I'm interested in said program. I'd like to do, whatever thing. What can you tell me about this? Now, the reason I say this is one method is our graduate programs in terms of the admission and the back end operational side of it is run by Rowan University Global Learning and Partnerships. Okay. And you might have heard other institutions have global, or they have some other mechanism that kind of handles the back end of that separate and special programs. That is very confusing because how would anybody know to go to Rowan Global? So sometimes you might see that, which is a very different style website, and you can see it on ours. If you look up, if you do just a Google search, you'll get some that are academic department and some that are through Rowan Global. Look at everything. Look at both, and I will say, try not to judge if some of the web information is confusing or not as consistent, but you want contacts. And then don't be afraid just to email and ask. I have students email all the time, or usually they'll email the department and they'll say, I have questions about X, Y, and Z, and we'll talk to you or forward you to whomever can answer those questions. But don't be hesitant. Don't be hesitant. Like I'd say, don't be shy. And even ask multiple individuals in departments. Say you're interested in reading, okay, well, I have multiple faculty members. All right, ask all three and see what you get. And you're really just here to collect information. I always say it's like my grandfather used to say, don't fall in love with a used car. Not that I'm going to make that comparison to graduate school, but faculty and even individuals who work here, like I love working at Rowan, and I will always speak positively because I enjoy it. But that doesn't mean that Rowan would be the right fit for you. So you have to understand that. So you want to just collect and take all the information that you can and make and kind of cross-reference it against other, compare and contrast with other institutions and other individuals you're talking to, and then whatever your gut says, that's usually the correct thing. Go with your gut. And then just to add another thing I thought of with what Jason said, when you go to, you can ask about, is there an open information session, or is there anyone I can talk to? But also be honest about yourself and about your situation, because if I'm working. If I'm working 9 to 5, or I need to be 100% online, not all programs are 100% online. Now, and granted, like our 3 programs, computer science, none are online. Whereas, you'll find across the United States, a lot of MBA programs are online. But are they all the same? No, there's different dynamics, and all of these things you have to consider. So it's really key to be honest with yourself. So that's a large answer. Anybody else want to tag in there with that?
I mean, yeah, thanks, Mike. You brought up some good points, and Jason definitely brought up some good points with the information session when you're meeting with these admissions people. If you're meeting with someone one-on-one, I would even say almost no question is out of bounds. A lot of fair questions that will come into play would be things like, if I'm going for the online route versus going on campus, is my degree going to be different? Am I missing out on something by taking online courses versus taking them on campus? Um, talk a little bit about, if you have some experience out in the field, if you've taken an undergraduate courses in the same thing, it's a fair question to say some of these graduate courses look similar. Can I get credit for those? Sometimes they may say no, sometimes they may say yes, but these are all things that are, I would say, good questions because, to kind of add to Mike's comparison with the car, you want to kick around the tires a bit. You'll want to talk to the faculty. If they have students at that event, definitely talk to them. Because they're the ones who are going to be in your position in maybe a year or 6 months or two. And they're the ones who are paying the money, going through the program, doing the work, and hoping to get the degree. So that's probably where you're going to get your most honest testimony.
Great, thank you. I think some of the questions that come in are a little bit specific, but how to find the answers to them is kind of more of a general thing. So for the next one, it says, which classes in my senior year would be most helpful to pursue a master's in school psychology? Someone else said, if I wanted to pursue a master's in inclusive education, what courses should I take in my senior year? Who do they ask? How do they find out what they need? What do you think?
I think wherever that master's degree actually is, if it's a Rowan school, if it's another school, talk to the coordinators or managers of that specific program to determine what classes will be the best to prepare them. Potentially maybe they could use senior privilege or something similar at Rowan to take some graduate level courses that could then transfer into the program if that program allows transfer credits. But the answer is so program specific that it's not a broad thing where we have a transfer policy. We have senior privilege for our students, and I get the same question for our business students or other students all the time. But we also have undergraduate business prerequisite courses students have to do. So if a student doesn't have any of those completed, we tell them in your senior year, take a couple of these because that's a better use of your time now for what we require for our program. So that program has, the psychology or the inclusive education has a similar requirement. They'll be able to say, take this course for preparation, take this for a prereq, take this for graduate level potential transfer to count towards the program. And I think that'll be extremely helpful, but definitely need to have a conversation with those coordinators. It's worth it, whether it's email, usually phone call for something that detailed might be a little easier to set up, but email first to kind of have that starting conversation, I think is worth it.
Absolutely. And you're specific with what you want. Take a step back and be a little more general. So for example, both of those are, involving the College of Education. You might be hyper focused on, this thing A and this thing B, but did you know about things C, D, and E? Do you know about these other options? Because that's ultimately how, I was originally an instructional track, because there's a few things I want to teach, and I fell accidentally in higher ed administration and never looked back ever since. So sometimes it happens that way that you don't know. I hate the phrase, I'll say it, but you don't know what you don't know. And that's why you have to go and talk. And this seems like it's a lot of work. It is. And it should be, because grad school's expensive. And there's also time and there's also stress involved to it. So you want to take the time to make sure you're making the absolutely correct choice for you. And that's the absolute way to do it. Yeah.
Great. There was a question in the chat, and I was wondering, Christina, if you had thoughts, or anyone else, of course, but someone asked, I was accepted into 3 PhD programs I applied for. They're all online programs at public universities. The advice I get in choosing is to go where whoever funds me, which makes sense as a first, thought at the front of your mind, but you're planning to go with the best program that requires the least travel. Smart way to think about it too. Does anyone know if online programs generally offer funding? Should I ask? How do I ask? Great question.
Yeah, thanks, Taylor. I saw that and I was peeking around for you. And we can always chat offline too if you want to delve deeper into the specific program that you're in. But there are grants and scholarships. You can also consider assistantships, graduate assistantships for wherever you choose to go. And that just means outreach to the departments and figuring out if those positions are available and what type of funding they are providing for you. And that may offset the tuition in comparison to the 3 schools that you have on your queue. So I would definitely consider looking around for graduate assistantships or employment in, grad work in that particular department or school, and that may be the start of helping you make a better financial decision. And Taylor, I'll go ahead and put my email in the chat if you wanted to get deeper into the weeds with this.
Thank you so much. Okay, next is my favorite question we got for the session. Is it okay to do undergrad and grad school at Rowan, or should I try to diversify and go somewhere else for grad school? Does it matter? I was very curious to know your opinions on this. Dennis, what do you think? What's your
Well, if it's
opinion?
Rowan, no, it doesn't matter because you went to a great school for your undergrad and grad, and employers are going to look at you and think, wow, you're smart. But I have heard the other side of this, and I think it works in certain areas, certain industries. I've heard this with, if you want to move up in education, you should get your doctorate degree at some other place that where you didn't get your grad degree or undergraduate. Um, but really, it just depends on the resources that school provides in terms of uh, I'm still thinking from like a business perspective, but things like internships, full-time placement, what companies can they get you in? What doors can they open for you? It really depends on that kind of institution. And if the best option, even the most convenient, like who's offering things online, who has the most friendly tuition, who's going to come up with the best scholarship package for me. If that continues to be the same school that you got your undergraduate degree in, I would say go for that. I would say there's no slide or shame against, um, going back to a great thing if you've really compared it to other options that might be out there.
Dennis, I think that's a great answer. And honestly, you sparked something for me that I want to share too. I think it's related to this concept of funding undergrad and grad, same school. The next question, which is how I choose between two things I'm passionate in, and all kind of fits together. When applying to grad programs, I think a lot of students, a significant portion, think they need to go right from undergrad to grad immediately. You graduate from your bachelor's degree and then you should go to grad school right away. That I'm not saying that every student needs to do that. I think if anything, more students don't do that, but a lot of students do. And I just want to say that to anyone listening, you don't need to go right into grad school right after you graduate. You have your bachelor's degree, you're graduating in a spring semester at the end of May. Doesn't mean you have to jump right into grad school, because a lot of companies will pay for further education. You can go work for a year, 6 months, 2 years, whatever it is. And the benefit to doing that, if you decide that's the better path for you, might be obviously a funding component is nice, but the other side of it is deciding if which grad program is right for you in the first place. You don't need to go get a degree in something if it's not actually what you want to do, but you won't know that, so you go work in the industry, the field a little bit first, right? And similarly, some graduate programs are a little more advanced in terms of an applicable real world scenario in the classroom and bringing what you're doing in your professional life into the classroom and vice versa. So if you have some real world professional experience first to bring into the classroom when you're in the program experience, it can help make that overall program experience better for you. So I think there are some benefits to consider when you're thinking of, should I go work and then come back, in terms of figuring out what program is right for you, the funding component of everything, if an assistantship wasn't an option for you. I think that all has to kind of play a factor, and the answer doesn't need to be that you go right into grad school right after you finish it, which is great. So I just wanted to share that. I think that's an important point I share a lot with students to consider.
Yep.
Yeah, and go ahead, Christina.
Oh, no, I was just going to chime in that going for your BA or your BS allows you this great exploration of all different topics. And then when you have the opportunity for an advanced degree, it allows you to become a master in whatever content that is. So I think in picking your advanced degree, it should be aligned with what you're interested in becoming a master at that content. So I think the school choice is important, but it's more the topic and the content that you're going for. Does that align with your next step? I think that should be the question to consider as well.
Now for those, I don't know if anybody on the call, because every now and then we get somebody who gets what we call the bug. And some of you say that, you know what, I want to be a faculty member, okay, at an institution of higher education. Okay, that's a different issue. Number one, yes, you're looking at the PhD, and in that case, you will not want to get 3 degrees from the same institution, and you definitely would want to go to another place. Now, I would say that it's not a decision to be made on a whim. You have to think about, like, do you really want to do it carefully? And it goes into that PhD discussion. And I had a student years ago. She was a math student, ended up getting her master's, but she wanted to go on to a PhD, and she definitely wanted a PhD in mathematics, but which we don't have at Rowan, so she had to go somewhere else. And ultimately, it was really, the decision was more on not just where she wanted to do, but with whom she wanted to work with, because you need a dissertation chain, you need to do research. And I'll use another family comparison. My uncle always said, he talked about the most important lesson about buying golf clubs: make sure you really like the looks of them. That way you won't smash them, and when you're not as good at your game, and that because you are spending a lot of money on them. And that's the reality, because you have to make sure that you love what you're doing, because you're not always going to like it. And it is a commitment, and a big time commitment. So that's one thing that you would also consider with whom you want to work. But that means I'd have to do more work and explore and meet people. Yep, that's the idea of it. Now, in terms of, let's say, another thing to think of is the terminal. When we say terminal, that means of a specific field, the end of the road. For many, it's a PhD, but for others, it's not. It isn't that way. Where I am in computer science, a very, very, very slim minority want to go into academia. Those who want to go into industry, you can get 2 degrees from the same place, and industry really is not, that's neither here nor there. And what I tell a lot of our students, and I'm very open with this, sometimes I have students, particularly in our +1 programs, they'll say, oh, I want to stay, I'm ready to do my year for master's. Oh, wait a minute, I just got an offer. What should I do? I tell them, we will be here, I hope. We will be here. An offer, an opportunity may not always. So go, like Jason said, go get paid. But a lot of those companies will say, well, no. We want you to get your master's. Hold on. We will pay for it. Really go with the money every time, because number one, you're getting money. You're getting benefits, which, many of you are younger, so you don't even know what that means. Just know that everything on you, at some point, it'll stay broke. Once you break it, it stays broke, and stuff will hurt for no reason. Then benefits become important. I laugh at that, because I had a student the other day say, I need to figure out what I'm doing. I'm getting old. I'm almost 23. I'm like, okay. But you also you're getting pay full time, you get salary benefits, but then you're also having your master's paid, so and you're getting professional experience, so it's win all the way. And so you can't go wrong with that. So just realize there's options nested within options, and there are more options like that, not just at Rome but everywhere, than ever before. So it's really, for lack of a better term with students, it's really a buyer's market with that. So don't just jump all into one thing. Consider all the options there. I think, Christina, you unmuted again. Type again. Oh, sorry. No.
Thank you. We were
No, I just, oh, sorry.
oh, no, go ahead.
I was just getting ready for the next question.
Yes, please. Go ahead.
I believe we're on, how do I choose between 2 things I'm passionate in, right? Is that
Yes.
what
Yep.
it's very hard. I understand that situation completely, and it is a big decision. I was just looking at the Occupational Information Network. It's this big fancy name for a really neat tool. It's the O*Net online website tool, and it's great because it allows you to take a look at so many occupations and what degrees and certifications they require. And you can kind of better choose the degree that you're interested in based on the career or the field that you'd like to entertain. So I think, again, I'm going back to, does the degree align with your next step, would be a way to help you make that hard decision on choosing between 2 degrees. So again, I'll put that website in the chat. You could take a peek, and maybe that will help you with making the decision.
Great, a great segue. Now, we decided, we found the best fit, we did all of that research, and now it's about applying. I think one of the major questions that came up, and I didn't put in every one that came through regarding this, was about recommendation letters. And so the third question here, I'm kind of jumping around, but has a specific question about it. But in general, recommendation letters, what if I'm in an online program, I don't know my professor super well because I haven't had that face-to-face connection with them quite yet. My program has a lot of adjunct professors, so I might have only taken them for one course, you know, most of the time. For those students who are in 3+1 programs, they're only at Rowan for potentially 1 year, and so, you know, only have professors for one class. What's your advice on getting those professor recommendations? Mike, what do you think? You've worked with professors a ton over your career.
Yes, I have. In terms of recommendation letters, number one, you ask professors who are, you know, most familiar, that, you know, with whom you're most familiar. I've had students ask me as an advisor for recommendation letters, which I've done in the past. The only thing is, I'll say to you, just a practical side of the wagon. It's just a professional courtesy. Speak to them first and let them know that, hey, is it all right if I do this? Because sometimes, you know, students will just throw a bunch of, hey, you know, recommendation out, and then I'm applying to 20 places. Can you rate 20? Like, oh my goodness, and that's a lot. So just respect time. The earlier, the better for everything. Okay, that's the most important thing there. Now, in terms of whom you should ask, first of all, if your whatever professors you've worked with closely, the closest rather, who know your abilities, that you've done work with. Usually, it could be in a seminar class or some type of anyone that you've done research with is an absolute, hands down, because that always looks spectacular. Obviously, you're going to want somebody who's going to say good things about you. That goes without saying. That's definitely those are definitely the ones you would want to have recommend. Most schools require 2 to 3. It's somewhere within that. They don't want, you know, an over the top amount. Um, for most faculty, they've written plenty of letters in their time. It's a common thing to do. But you want things to be specific to your abilities, especially if you've done research or done great things in the classroom or done. You want to choose individuals who are going to go into detail and be really good with you. Now, there is one little other asterisk. What if there's a school I'm looking at that I'm really interested in, and the professor went there? Should I have that person give me a recommendation? Absolutely, yes. Like, oh, a fellow alumnus, because maybe I'll also give a call to somebody. That can mean all the difference, especially if you wanted to get funding for, you know, a grad assistantships or do, you know, detailed research. So that's another thing. It is networking is important. Networking is important, and you can kind of use that to help for there. But anyone who you've worked the closest with, and for those of you who are, I don't know where everyone is in their path here. This is unfortunately very, for lack of a better term, discriminates against transfer students, because you might have had the time to build relationships. So go out of your way, and if you're approaching your senior year, go out of your way to make some relationships. Don't hesitate, and don't be shy. So talk to your professor about what you're doing, do well with them, and say, I'm interested in graduates, and start those conversations. Usually the conversations can be all in one. That I'm interested in graduate school, I'm interested in doing this, what can you tell me? Where did you go? What advice can you give me? Oh, and then build that into an easy recommendation. So it's easier than you think, but obviously all of that is early. It's the best thing I could say is start early. Anybody else going to be experienced there with?
I would say I totally, agree with that. Just in my own experience, it's really, the how well the recommender knows you and that relationship that you have with them. That's what makes a great recommendation. It would even, I say, put more value than who you're actually getting it from. I saw one recommendation from the coach of the men's basketball team of their famous basketball program that went to March Madness every year, and it was a big name. And halfway through that recommendation, the coach said, I don't actually know this person, but I'm sure they're going to be great. And I think that student was hoping that the big name would place value on the total application, and it really didn't. Um, Even like a professor, you're the boss at your current job, a coworker, someone who can speak to your skills and what you're going to bring into that program will always um, give the admissions office a good idea of what kind of student you're going to be.
That's a great point. I've also would say, um, I think having that conversation with them, like Mike was saying, talking to them about your interests. If it's a professor who's teaching in an area of interest that you have, or a type of, if you're pursuing research, like you said, a research professor that you've had for a research course or that have done research with. And also, as an advisor, if someone ever asks me to write a recommendation letter, I ask to have an appointment with them to talk about their interests. And then I also ask for them to send me their resume. Even if it's not like a finalized type of resume that they would send in for a job application, but so that I can make sure I remember some of the things that they have experience into. So that's always a good thing to kind of have ready in order to give to some of your recommenders as well. Just for time's sake, let's continue to answer some of these questions. So some of these are a little nitty gritty, but I think we can speak to them for sure. If they ask for a general personal statement, what do I write about?
I would just say that if for any sort of personal or professional statement or statement of purpose, however they might call it, it's all effectively the same goal of why it's there in an application process. You want to really just speak to what are your interests and goals and what you plan to do when you graduate. When you're done with this program, what do you plan to do? What do you hope the program you're applying to will add to the interest that you have? What do you hope to bring to the program itself as an individual, who you are now currently, what you hope to gain, and it all kind of fits through. So when you're trying to think through it, just focus on who you are currently, who you want to be, and what you want to do, and what the program will provide to you in that transition or that connection between the two types of people, and how you hope to grow. I think that's really what it is, and you can focus on you can focus on the academic side of things and the area and what your specifics of what you're learning. So if you're in business, you want to do, I hope to learn so much more about accounting in this area of accounting or something like that. Or if you're in psychology, I hope to learn about school psychology specifically because I want to help students. That's what I'm really interested and passionate in. Something like that, right? You can focus on that too. But the one thing I will say not to include is don't just list all you took these classes and this is what I learned in undergrad, and that just goes so very far away from what they want. They want any admissions director, program director, they want to know who you are, what you bring to the table, and what you hope to gain from the program. And that's the best place to start when you're writing this. It makes it a little easier to start that way, and then you can fine tune it to sound as professional as you want before you would submit it in the end.
This definitely relates to that last question as well. Is there someone at Rowan I could talk to with help with essays, personal statements? Yes, I'm going to put the link to the writing center in the chat, unless anybody else has other suggestions, but that would kind of be my first suggestion, would be to reach out to the writing center. They help with things like that. They also help with resumes, but so does our Office of Career Advancement as well. So those are two great resources. Any other resources, or do we think that pretty much covers it? And of course, your advisor is happy to look over those things with you too.
Can I answer a controversial question not asked? Because the students may ask this: who actually reads this? Are people really going to read this stuff? Why should I put so much time into my references or to my letters and all that? Here is why. When there's any opportunities for assistantships or funding or anything that there might not be enough to go around, yes, then they do get read. Then that is going to become critical. And now, if you're going to say, "Well, I don't care about funding or about money's no object to me," well, like good for you. But the reality is, yes, you do want to put the time into your statement and the time into who you have recommend you, just because there's opportunities you don't know about. Hey, there's this new grant we got. Who wants to be part of that? Who wants to have their stuff paid for? Who wants this other opportunity? You want to be on top of the pile. So yes, that is why you want to take that seriously.
I wanted to add in
Lastly,
about writing
I'm
center.
sorry.
Oh, sorry. I'm sorry. Yeah, I wanted to just jump in about the assistance with the essay writing. If you are a Rowan student, we have another platform called BrainFuse. And if you log on to that account, we do have a writing lab component to BrainFuse. So if you want to check out the Writing Center, we also have the BrainFuse Writing Lab, which is a remote form of assistance.
My last comment, really quick, Holly, was just saying, our master's degree in business school, we have a very high acceptance rate, but we have definitely not admitted students because their statement of purpose didn't show enough effort and energy and care to actually what they wrote in it. So definitely is something that matters even at the point of just admission to not every program, but just a lot of programs do actively read them, and you never know if they will or they won't. So put your best into it. It definitely is worth the time.
Speaking of, what GPA looks good for business grad programs? How can students know if their GRE score is good enough, their other scores are good enough? How do they know?
No, it's a great question. First, I'll say hopefully the business school will actually note if it's any waiver options or what the GPAs are. But typically, for us at Rowan specifically, and since we have the same accreditation as all the other high-level business programs in the area, we require about a 3.3 GPA to be considered strong. We do have people under a 3.3 who can get admitted. It's not saying you have to have a 3.3 to definitely get in. If you're under a 3.0, almost likely that unless you have 10 plus years of professional experience or the highest GMAT GRE scores ever, you're likely not going to directly go into the master's program. We might have an alternative certificate pathway, graduate certificate, COGS pathway, where you might go at the end of the master's degree a different way. Most schools have similar pathways and probationary periods where you can go to the master's if you have a lower than 3.0 GPA, not a lot of experience. Typically, a 3.3 is what you want to go for. And I will say a lot of business grad programs are going away from standardized testing, thankfully, in terms of GRE and GMAT. And I think a lot of programs in general are just from the business world. I know they're going away from it, or they give you plenty of chances to waive it so you don't have to do it. But that means your experience, your application holistically, your GPA need to be as strong as they can be to avoid needing to take a standardized test to bolster your application. So I think that answers it.
In terms of that, kind of leads into the question above it. What are the prerequisites to apply for grad school? That's one of those, it depends. But I will say, from what I know, please tell me, panelists, if I'm incorrect, is that undergraduate degree is kind of the one thing. And then if there are other requirements, like certain types of courses that you may have needed for that particular program. So for example, you might need, for certain psychology degrees, you probably have to take certain psychology courses in order to qualify for those programs. And that's a great thing to work on with your advisor to make sure you're meeting the prerequisites for those programs. And how do you figure out what those prerequisites are? Like we have mentioned before, talking to the program coordinators for them, and also it's usually listed in the admissions requirements when you are applying to those programs of the types of things that you need to accomplish before being able to apply. Any other thoughts on that?
I was just going to add, like when you're at some of these open houses or information sessions, a lot of these schools will actually divulge what the average GPA or standardized test score would be for the students that they've admitted for either that particular year or the year before, or however many years they're saying. But when you're meeting with an admissions counselor, you can kind of bring that up, like, okay, this was my GPA, but that was 10, 12 years ago, and um, kind of what Jason was bringing up is if there are other factors there, like 10 years of experience for something like a management degree, that can kind of counterbalance any GPA that you think might be below average. So a lot of these schools are going to take what they call the holistic approach, where it's really just one factor in the entire decision. One piece of advice I would give to kind of a previous question, with these statements and essays and all these other things, do not use AI. One of the things we used to do was check for form letters where students would just kind of fill in the blanks for things out there. And a lot of those admissions offices, they are checking to see if it looks like something that ChatGPT would write. So make sure it definitely comes from you. They're looking for things that are unique.
Thank you. And I think the last question on this page is, how come if you're a Rowan student, the application fee is late? Good question. Anyone?
I would have to defer that to global admissions.
Would you like it not to be waived?
Yeah, I will go ahead and put the global admissions email address in the chat as well if you have specific questions about what type of items are required for certain applications, that they are best to answer those questions.
All right. And the last set of questions is starting off strong. So I know most of our students are kind of thinking about grad school right now, but now what is it like to live it? So the questions that were submitted, the first one is being in grad school similar to undergrad, like the level of difficulty, the time you spend studying? What are your thoughts?
Okay, well, I have to do this all the time when I explain to +1 students what exactly to expect, because a lot get scared of it. Okay, it's weird. Not to say that in certain programs we won't have quizzes or tests or anything structuralized like that, but it's less of a didactic, me teaching down to you, and almost sometimes more me teaching across you, more collegial, depending on your program. It's a lot more. The stuff you'll be doing is much more intense, much more detailed, but yet feels more relaxed at the same time. More mature, for lack of a better term. For like a lot of our classes, like for in computer science, they'd say, okay, here's the projects we're going to be working on, and they're due when they're done, because it's not like you're not going to do them, which is also why B's and C's are not good in graduate school. It's really, your A's are really what you want to aim for, because this is what you're passionate about, what you really want to do, and there's not a bunch of other somewhat correlated classes that you have to take, or gen eds or things like that nature. It's hyper focused and only what you want to do, and that's the experience there. There'll be a lot more. Most of the work you're going to be doing on your own. Not to say you wouldn't have interaction with a professor or even other classmates, but a lot of the work you'll be doing on your own, and it can be very long and deep in detail, which is why, of course, we say you gotta like what you're doing. And I can say that's my experience, but everybody here with the graduate school, what y'all experience is.
I'll just say 2 words, I think, to summarize it. Critical thinking is the biggest part of it. You're going to be bringing opinions to discussions, to papers, to projects, to just conversations and assignments you might be doing. It's not, you will, as Michael mentioned, you will have some quizzes, some tests, some programs do more of that, some programs do less of that. It's part of it, but not to the same extent of what you're dealing with in undergrad. When you're an undergrad, you're you're in any sort of junior or senior level class, you're going to be learning a skill. You're going to have to show or just show you learn that skill or learn that concept on an exam somehow. In the graduate school, it's expecting you to understand those concepts already. Now, here's a scenario, here's a real world situation, here's something that you're learning. Now, what are your thoughts on this? And that's the simplest way I can explain it, but there are obviously more discussions in it. But that's how a lot of programs and classes at the graduate level work. So it may feel like less time spent, it may feel less difficult. And yes, again, Michael mentioned the grade part. Yeah, there aren't graduation honors at the graduate level. In general, there's no summa cum laude, magna cum laude, because the expectation is higher. You need a 3.0 to finish a graduate program almost anywhere. It's not, you can't graduate with lower than that. And so it's not intended to be challenging in the way of, bad grade, here's a C, here's a D, you're not doing great, you're failing this assignment. It's no, if you're not getting the most out of it, you're paying, and you're supposed to want to be here. You're interested and focused on learning this because you're passionate about it. That naturally, that makes the difficulty, the time spent part not feel as much as what you might feel at an undergrad level. So it's a different type of learning, but it is absolutely valuable if it's something you're passionate about and what you're studying.
Yeah, and to add on that, I would say it's a lot of independent work as well. Whereas undergrad, I feel as though you have a lot of assignments and courses that you are required to take, that you have to do. Where on the graduate level, you're engaged in topics and research that you want to engage in, things that you are personally interested in pursuing on an advanced level. So I think it goes from being a kind of like a you have to do something to now you are independent and you want to do the work.
Absolutely. So will I have an advisor in grad school who's going to help me pick my classes and, you know, tell me how I'm going to register?
In some capacity, the answer is going to be yes, you will have an advisor. It's the reason I say it that way, and anyone can comment too, is sometimes you'll have a dedicated advisor, which is someone like myself, someone like Michael. You might have a dedicated advisor, you know, that's meant to help you. Other cases, it might be a faculty member or professor that's teaching in your program is also your advisor. Sometimes another office within your university might do the advising for your program. So in the admissions office, not admissions, Rowan Global, they have an advising office as well that can assist students with advising in certain programs. So you will most likely, yes, have an advisor pretty much always. Some programs have better advising than others. I did my thesis on this actually. Some programs do it a lot better than others do, naturally, in terms of the experience. But you should have some form of advising almost always. And if you don't, then that's a key question to ask during the admissions process when you're going through this again, and which program you want to go to.
And I know we kind of touched on this earlier, but does anyone have experience in finding a grad assistantship? Do they pay for tuition was the question. Did any of you have grad assistantships when you were going through?
I didn't. I applied to a lot. I didn't get one though, because it's very competitive. That's my 2 cents on the matter. It's very competitive. They're great, but they're competitive.
I did have one. It was through Residence Life. So at Rowan, actually, I did the school counseling program at Rowan. So if anyone is interested in the school counseling program, I did it. It was over a decade ago, but I'm happy to share my experience individually. And I was applying to, I don't remember a lot about how I found it, but I remember applying to it while I was applying to graduate school. And that kind of helped me make my decision on which graduate school I was going to attend, to be honest. There are a couple of programs in New Jersey that have great school counseling programs, like, some up north and things like that. And I was also looking at some Philadelphia schools, but Rowan, going through that interview process, even just going through the interview process, even if I hadn't gotten the graduate assistantship, it helped me to solidify my decision to come to Rowan as a student. Some of them do pay for tuition and some do not. I do know that. Any other thoughts on that, or last minute pieces of advice for our students?
I think it is an individual decision too. So if you have individual questions for any of us, reach out to us individually. We are not difficult to find, but don't let that be your first start of not being afraid. Come ask us questions. I want to know the real deal. What's the real deal with the MBA program? Tell me, Jason. Okay, go meet Jason. He'll straight up tell you. So don't hesitate. 'Cause we know we always throw a lot of information at these things, but this is just the very first step for you.
It was a great conversation. I thank you all for taking the time to join us. If you didn't get your question answered or you'd like more information, I will include some helpful links in our YouTube videos description, or you can send an email to these emails that I have posted here. global@rowan.edu is more for the admissions side of things. So to speak to a graduate admissions counselor at Rowan, so if you're looking for Rowan graduate programs, globalstudent@rowan.edu is more the advising side of things. You might get to chat with someone like Christina on that. If you send an email there, it'll be directed to an advisor in our office. And then we also have the YouTube link posted. There is a video titled "So You're Considering Grad School" that one of our colleagues, Nicole Toda, had made. She went through graduate program at Rowan, and she is an advisor for psychology students, and she created this presentation. So you're considering graduate school, that I highly encourage to check out, because it kind of goes in some of the things we talked about, but also some other pieces of advice. We hope that you find the perfect fit for you. I thank the other attendees on the line that work with our students, Professor Wintowski, Maria, Marin, thank you all for also coming in case anything was applicable to you, but these are also other resources as well for students from different majors. So please do not hesitate to reach out to us. Any final thoughts, or we will end the call.
Just thank you, everybody, and best of luck in any applications you might be submitting. Best of luck and the whole process.
Best of luck. Thank you.
Feel free to reach out.
Thank
We're
you.
here for
Take
you.
care. Bye.